What's going on, everybody? My name is Master Sergeant Dave Sanlitri, and welcome to another episode of Generation Space. That's right, we have a sign this time. Pretty cool. So right now we're at ULA, and we're here in just south of Denver, and I have some great guests on our show today. So why don't you introduce yourselves, and we can get going.
All right, I'm Zach Henney. I'm a trajectory engineer here at the United Launch Alliance, and I'm working the GPS 301 mission, GPS 3 Magellan mission for ULA.
So the big brain here. All right, establish that. No big deal.
So I'm Captain David Liapis, and I actually had an opportunity last year with an Air Force program called Education with Industry, where I actually worked with United Launch Alliance for just about a year, and I was out at Cape Canaveral for the most part, but got to do a lot of traveling to see a lot of rocket launches and manufacturing facilities and all kinds of neat stuff.
So you went from that uniform to this uniform, back to this
uniform, exactly. Man, and then eventually to that uniform.
There we go. You'll get there, right?
I'll get there. I haven't upgraded yet, but.
Nice. So, like, Zach, I know you've been part of this GPS 3 for quite a bit now. You got to see it almost like cradle to grave because we're a couple of months out from launching the next GPS 3.
Coming up soon.
So tell me, what's been the highlights of working this project?
So for me, one really cool thing is it's my first Delta mission that I've worked. So just been super interesting. Slight process differences between a Delta and an Atlas. So
sure,
it's been cool. I had about a year of just doing different studies with the Atlases. So it was interesting to come over to that. But for me, it's specifically, like, I got started with the preliminary mission analysis back in 2017. We went from that, which is, our kind of first look at a mission like this. Go from that to our final mission analysis, which is a little more formal, gives a good estimate of what we're doing for our customers, and then we're now in the best estimate trajectory cycle. So for me, it's pretty cool, especially getting to the BET where it's like, oh man, we're coming up quick because we start that just about 2.5 months out. So
we're around
it's
now.
Exciting. Yeah, that
is exciting. Like, how do you explain this to like what you do, the mission GPS 3 to like your mom when you call her on the phone? Like, how's that go?
So my joke with my family, like when I see extended family and I don't really want to explain what I'm doing, is just that I'm the FedEx guy of space. Like, it's my job to take something and get it where it needs to be. When they start pressing me on that, it gets a little more complicated.
So you're like the GPS for GPS.
Yeah.
In this case. Right.
Exactly.
GPS inception.
How do I get
GPS
there?
squared. Yeah, no. I'm, just helping to get along and get it onto orbit in one very healthy piece.
That's important because without Waze I'm lost. So I need my GPS.
right Now Delta, if I'm not mistaken, has launched a lot of GPS satellites, not necessarily the Delta 4 like we see behind us, but
yeah, Delta 2 was pretty much built for the GPS program and was the workhorse. Like, you see all the cool fairings with the little sharks on them, the shark teeth fairings for, I forget who they were painted in honor of, but there's a good history on Delta of GPS. So it's nice to be a part of that.
So kind of a dual historic thing, right? I mean, like, there's the legacy of GPS on Delta, but then this is the last Delta medium, correct?
Yep, the last of the single sticks. So it'll be cool to see it go.
Seems like the one consistent in space is change. I don't know if it's oxymoron or what, but it just seems like the business keeps on growing, and like the things we can do. It's like, hold my beer, watch what I can do next. Sir, like, you have an interesting perspective too. So ULA, we're Air Force, we're kind of like the customer. What have you learned kind of working with both ULA and now being almost a spokesperson for Air Force Space Command? What's the connective tissue like there?
Well, it's really kind of interesting because I know you've been kind of a space enthusiast basically all your life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of seems like, from
just
what
kind of
we know.
sucked into it.
Whereas I space was cool when I was a kid because shuttle was around and all that kind of stuff, but it just sort of faded. And so, to be like part of Generation Space now, I've been in this space industry for a couple of years, and ULA was sort of my just right off the deep end immersion into it. And so I went from being a public affairs officer that didn't know anything about space to having to learn all the launch stuff and get to go and see the launches and see the processing and all the things that go into mission assurance and everything that goes on from the ULA side, from the Air Force side, how that all integrates so that we have a successful launch and we get stuff on orbit to help the warfighter, and in this case to help 6 billion users worldwide with GPS. And so just to bring that all home and then come here and be able to talk about it and share that enthusiasm, because I mean, space is really cool.
It is cool, and you used my favorite term, generation space. It's kind of like when you're watching a movie and they say the name of the movie in the movie. You're like, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. They did it. But generation space, so like, Zach, you've been, ULA for like 3-4 years now?
Just coming up on 3, yeah.
So like when you were going to school for, what was your major?
I was a major aerospace engineering with astronautical focus.
I feel like that kind of degree, like really, it's catching on almost like space, like when our, at least our parents, you too, space back in like the 60s was so exciting. It's exploration left and right. And then like right, it started to kind of phase, like almost like plateau. But then like this is the cool stuff now. This is what you turn on in the news and you see on Instagram feeds, you see this all over the place. What's it been like to kind of be part of this, be part of Generation Space, being the cool kid again?
Yeah, so I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University out in Arizona, and as the name implies, we have a pretty good aviation heritage, and within the aerospace engineering degree, there's the aero track and the astro track, and when I came in, there's like 10 of us on the astro track. We were kind of cliquey because there was not many of us, but by the time we graduated, like the astro track had come to outnumber the aero kids, so that was a pretty cool evolution. And like, you look at the time we were there, you have a lot more missions going off, a little more development. You had Vulcan. I know a lot of my classmates and I tried to spam the naming contest for Vulcan.
Nice. Well, yeah, Vulcan. So was that your idea? That wasn't?
That was not mine. I don't remember what I put in, but we're all pretty satisfied when it came in because, it has a good heritage. You keeping the, kind of the Atlas theme alive, Atlas, Saturn, all those classic names. So let's throw Vulcan in with the mix. But
so explain real quick what Vulcan is.
So Vulcan is our next generation. It's coming online in 2021 to replace both Atlas and Delta. We'll still be flying both Atlas and Delta as we start to fly out Vulcan, but it's gonna be a big rocket. We're gonna be flying only 5-meter vehicles. So right now, Atlas is a 3-meter body with a 4 or 5 meter fairing. Delta is a 5-meter with either a 4 or 5 meter fairing. Vulcan standard is a 5-meter vehicle. It's got 2 big BE-4s on the bottom for booster thrust. We're flying 2 RL-10s on an upgraded Centaur. So it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna open a lot of doors for us, and it's going to make things interesting for ULA in the 20s as we bring it online and fly more missions.
Generation Space grows even more.
Exactly.
That's right.
And now you're working on, here at ULA, the coolest projects, the cutting edge stuff. And then you're partnering with the Air Force to not only just help fellow Americans, but but our warfighters downrange who use GPS-3. Do you ever stop and think about GPS-3? This is what our airmen and our soldiers and Marines and sailors are all going to be using. Do you ever am I getting a little too into the weeds? Do you ever think about that stuff?
No.
Do I get too proud and patriotic?
No, it's I mean, like, a lot of people just kind of think about it as the app on their phone that helps them get to the grocery store. But like, GPS has a lot more legacy and heritage and power behind it than just like, I love Waze too, but I mean, it's just scratching the surface of really what it's doing. So yeah, it's cool to be a part of that and know that I'm helping out and keeping people safe.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so working on this project with GPS-3, what would you say has been the highlight? Your best memory, maybe?
Oh man,
What's yet to be made?
I'm hoping the best memory slot is going to be the launch, because that's going to be my first one seeing in person. So I'm super excited for that. But for me, like, being a part of this program here, especially trajectory side, like, I've been able to flex my skills and learn so much in terms of trajectory development and how it's going to help me in the future here at ULA. So that's been great. I owe a lot to this program.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what's been the thing you've been enjoying most since being part of like this space team and getting to see GPS-3 from like a conceptual idea, your time with ULA, and now it's about to get launched in July?
Well, I think that the excitement behind, he was talking about it, being Air Force, we kind of have to be agnostic when it comes to, launch providers, because what we want is our asset on orbit, doing what it's meant to do. And to be able to work with the different teams, whether it's the launch, we're talking about the ride to space on this episode.
The FedEx.
So yeah, I mean, you can kind of compare it like that, and it's just sort of, who gets it up there, and then also who builds it, working with Lockheed Martin and some of the other folks that are heavily involved in this. And then, I actually got to go see the first GPS-3 satellite launch. Well, actually, I missed it by a day. They scrubbed, and then I left.
Shocker.
But I got to watch it on the internet. But I was down there for that when VPOTUS and everybody was down there, and there's just all this excitement about GPS-3 because, I mean, this is the next generation. This is what's going to make our constellation resilient moving into the future, because space is no longer just this quiet place where we send something up and just let stuff work, and we have these operators, at these computer terminals just kind of making sure that all the beeps and the boops are okay and everything's fueled up and good to go. Now it's a contested and congested domain where we have to really worry about, collisions and about, threats, not just to the physical spacecraft, but, whether it's cyber threats and, all these things that are changing the way our paradigm and the way we have to look at space as a warfighting domain now, and not just a place where GPS satellites float around so we can get from point A to point B using our blue dot on our phone,
Yeah.
So really, to get back to your question, the excitement is just to seeing how important space is and really wrapping my head around how much space impacts the warfighter and the general population on every single moment of every single day.
Yeah, I heard someone talk about what happened if we didn't have our space stuff. Like if they flipped the switch, and as Americans we just didn't have our space capabilities. We talk about the little things like GPS on our phone, but swiping a card, not being able to get money, not being able to get gas. It really just puts the importance of why we need this and why we need to always be thinking about how do we lock this down and make sure this is always a capability should someone try to take it from us. I know that's something we talk about all the time, and to be part of it, that's going to be pretty neat. So you talked about the fact that this is the first time you've got to see something from cradle to grave.
Yeah.
What's something you didn't realize that being part of this from start to finish that you didn't have if you were just to work on one aspect of it?
I think just the overall scope, because in trajectory we often will pick up different parts of a mission for somebody else. Like for me in the BET right now, it's really busy, so I have another guy in my group doing a preliminary setup for what we use on the day of launch.
Okay.
And so when you're just doing slices of a mission, you get an idea for what's happening, but you don't get an understanding of the finer details. What's really cool about this mission is the flight azimuth that we're flying along to get to the target orbit is going to take us along the east coast of the United States. And so we just ran today a preliminary launch viewing analysis, and people in Maine can potentially see this on its way up.
Wow.
So that's a cool fact to see now, but for me, having figured out that flight azimuth back in the PMA cycle, it's cool. All right, yeah, hey, here's a real world impact. And so just starting at the start, you get a lot more sense of the grandeur of the actual trajectory development, and it's neat.
Kind of brings it all together, but perspective kind of shows that the left hand, right hand kind of works together.
Yeah.
A little bit like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Sir, what's something that's that you're looking forward to most seeing out of this upcoming GPS-3 launch? What makes you most proud to be part of this mission?
Well, I think that one thing you learn, whether in the military or working in a company like ULA, team is such a huge thing, and you have members of the team that aren't even the ones that you see out there doing the actual stuff on TV. Let's say a football team. You got all the people, the coaches and the assistants and everybody that does their part to make everything happen. And when you look at a launch like this, you look at the screen behind you there, and there's a Delta IV there at Cape Canaveral, and that gets launched, and some people just take that for granted and be like, oh yeah, it's Cape Canaveral, they launch rockets there, that's what they do. But how did that get there, right? That process begins way, way, way far away and way before that, what we see right there. We're talking the procurement and then the fabrication of the rocket in Decatur. ULA has their factory in Decatur where they roll out these massive sheets of metal, and they assemble these rockets and make all the fuel tanks and mate the motors to it and all this different stuff, and then they put it on this big boat and take it down the rivers and then into the ocean. And for Cape Canaveral, go around Florida and up, or if you got to go to California, then you got to go through the Panama Canal and all this transport to get everything everywhere. So you got these ship crews and you've got these fabricators in Decatur doing all the touch work and putting all these things together, and then it gets to the Cape, and then there's all the processing that they do in the horizontal integration facility there, where things come together, and then they put it up on the stand, and more things come together, and then they bring the spacecraft out, and that puts on, and more things come together.
A couple moving parts here.
So there's a heck of a lot that goes on in the process of putting a GPS satellite on orbit. So for me, what's exciting is all of these hundreds and thousands of people that are part of this team that brings us all together to watch that thing go up and do what it's supposed to do, and just the excitement and the satisfaction that they all feel from that, I think, is pretty amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're getting a little close to time. We got 5 minutes left. So one thing I'm just really curious to hear, like I'll start with you, Zach. What are you most excited for come launch day? What are you most proud of, excited about? What's getting you going?
I mean, for me, it's easy seeing 2 years of analyses actually come together into a real launch, and being able to be sitting there and just watch it go. Like, that's going to be incredible for me. So
you can actually be at the Cape for that?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be out there for that one. So it'll be exciting.
Well, you guys get to meet up again.
Yeah. That's right. There we go. Yeah, we'll be there for episode the next one of our episodes. So that'll be exciting. That's awesome. How about you, sir? What are you most excited about?
Well, yeah, like I said, the just everybody seeing the culmination of this. But I mean, a rocket launch. How can you not be excited about just the noise and the feel and I think, what time of day? This is like a morning launch, right? So the night launches are special because, I mean, it's just a huge fireball in the sky, and it's just super cool to see. But I like the day launches because you can actually see it going all the way up, and watch the separation of the boosters and all that, and you can see it with your naked eye standing there. And so, I mean, there's nothing that beats a rocket launch.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. So we're getting close to the end. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that maybe you want to mention or foot stomp or what's on your mind? What's on your mind, champ?
I don't know. Didn't think of anything extra to bring with me.
I know we talked about a lot. So Jersey Italian, I speak quick, and we cover a lot. So how about you, sir? What's on your mind?
No, I think this is just a really cool. It's just indicative when we see young people coming into the space industry and being so excited about it. And like you mentioned, there's this sort of shift where like everybody was there for airplanes, and now they're like, hey, let's look at space. What's going on in space? And I know, talking with folks at the Air Force Academy, for example, talking about, everybody's like, oh, I'm gonna come in and be a pilot in the Air Force, and now there's this excitement of, I'm gonna come in and be a space operator, because there's just this shift, whether it's in the military or on the civil side, where space is just becoming a very hot topic, and there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of companies doing a lot of amazing things that we would have never thought possible, that we're just trying to see where this goes from here. I mean, who knows what comes next in a decade or 2 decades from now. It's going to be amazing, and you get to be a part of that in this industry.
It's an exciting time to be here.
That's super cool.
That's awesome. It's exciting just to think about the possibilities. I think about my grandpa who worked at Cape Canaveral for a couple of years, and I think if he was around right now, I think he'd be pretty stoked. So this is a fun time. It's exciting. What's next?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, guys, thank you both for being here and for taking the time to speak with us. But I got a little something for you. So we're Generation Space. We have our great Generation Space crew member patch right here. Okay. So Zach, sir, you'll get one after the show. But here you go, our Generation Space sticker. Your Colorado style. Throw it on your snowboard or on your helmet, and
there you go.
Rock it with some pride.
Put on top to the mountain bike.
There we go. That works too. Cool. Well, that's it for this episode of Generation Space. Thanks for joining us, and hope you look forward to the next one where we continue this discussion about GPS 3.